what I found is a different way to mix up the incentives to basically take that control structure piece of the marketplace, that noise cancellation, and flip it on its head so that it's on the same side as the producers and consumers. And so it's not people versus computer augmented people. It's people and computer augmented people and everything else working together to try to figure out how to get through the noise.
Hi, and welcome to Helping People Perform, the podcast that gives you fascinating insights into those people whose chosen vocation is to help others perform at their best. From consultants to teachers, sports coaches to financial advisors, all of my guests share a passion for getting the most out of individuals, teams, and organisations. Enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Helping People Perform podcast. Today I'm joined by algorithm developer and recreational mathematician and founder at Coordisc. Welcome to the show, Noah Healy.
Thanks for having me here, Paul.
Thanks for joining us all the way from Charlottesville, Virginia. So we've got another guest from the States, which is always great.
That's great. Yeah. I think being in the States is pretty cool.
Always good to reach across the pond and share those great stories and insights that we've got with each other. So what I like to do to start off these podcasts is just get to know you a little bit in terms of your background. What has got you to where you are today?
Well, pretty much the most critical thing was getting out of college in 2000 and needing a job and landing inside the internet startup community.
Right.
And that led to now decades of studying the mathematics of computation, and that's what turned me into the person I am today, more or less.
And so what did you do at college?
I studied engineering. Mostly, actually, I wandered around the engineering school and took interesting looking math classes.
Right.
My pattern was that I took sort of an introductory, an intermediate, and a graduate level class in pretty much every single department that my engineering school had.
Right.
So like a 200 and then a 400 and then a 700 class. And then I'd be like, I didn't like that teacher, or that wasn't that great, whatever. I got what I describe as the mad scientist degree. It's an engineering science degree is what it formally is, but your electives describe it. And so my lab electives were robotics and radiation detection. And my science electives were genetics and relativity.
Wow. So a real mixed bag there.
That's why I call it the mad scientist degree.
No, I can certainly attest to that. I think there's a different sort of setup in the US educational system, certainly in the college level and our university courses and things. I did a general engineering course myself, and it was but very much prescribed as to what you went to. We haven't got those choices of electives quite as to the same extent as you guys.
That's actually the way my university works. You're not supposed to be able to do what I did. But I've never really been one for any convention that isn't forced. And my advisor basically decided that I was smart. I must be making good decisions, which might not have been a great decision on his part, frankly, but it's what happened.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, the ongoing assumption that being smart and making good decisions are two things that go hand in hand, eh?
Well, that's one of the difficulties actually with being smart, is that, yeah, sure, you do make better decisions on average, but that's really a double-edged sword, because the value of intelligence, much like, say, the value of strength, if you've got like the world's strongest man helping you out, the thing that's useful is that they're stronger than you, so they should be picking stuff up and things like that. rather than you doing it because it's easier for them.
Right.
But people get all political. And so the value of hiring smart people is getting them to make decisions for you. But people quite rightly freak out about having other people make their decisions.
Oh, brilliant! There's a whole science behind it, isn't there, from a decision-making perspective? But let's maybe that's for another day. So, in terms of what you've done and where you're going into now, we talked before this session, and we've had a brief conversation about some of the work you're doing. Again, going back to that challenging convention element. Tell us a bit more about what you're doing now in terms of challenging the convention of the way markets operate.
Sure. So, again, going back to my study of computation, markets are really the first artificial intelligent machines that human beings ever came across, and we didn't even know that we'd done it until now, centuries later. We understand information in physical and logical terms in ways that we didn't have the concepts for even in really the 50s. And the markets that we depend on, unfortunately, are breaking down because what they are at core is sort of noise cancellation signal boosters. So they basically work like headphones. They try to, everybody in the world has opinions about what is going on and what should happen in the future. What will actually happen more or less resembles the median point of those opinions most of the time. But if you just go out and talk to 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people or even 1 billion people, you're gonna go insane, basically. Like, that's not gonna look like what's gonna happen. And so markets moderate that for us. But markets deal with the information that's coming in. And what computers and the internet have done has radically increased the rate at which humanity can produce information. And markets were sort of a person versus person contest. And now it's a people versus computers contest. And just like you wouldn't win a lifting contest against a hydraulic ram, we're not going to win a BS contest against the internet. Right. So what I found is a different way to mix up the incentives to basically take that control structure piece of the marketplace, that noise cancellation, and flip it on its head so that it's on the same side as the producers and consumers. And so it's not people versus, computer augmented people. It's people and computer augmented people and everything else working together to try to figure out how to get through the noise.
Right. Oh, some amazing stuff there. And maybe we could delve into that a little bit in terms of some practical examples that demonstrate this. So you talk about particularly the speed of information and the volume of information that's out there. It's just getting far too much for any humans to calculate and consume in the time frames of decision making, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, so one of my favorite examples is who, well, for your purposes, who's the longest serving monarch of England in history?
So it'll be Queen Elizabeth.
Or the most significant, which monarch has served England for most of history?
I don't know the answer to that one.
That answer is King Charles, the current one.
Right.
And the deal is, it's always whoever's in charge right now, is the answer to the second question. Because history is what's written down, and we're writing things down at a hyper exponential rate.
Right.
there is no exponential curve that we can fit to the rate at which we currently produce information about the world.
Right.
And so, I live in a country with 2.5 centuries of history. You live in a country with 1,000 years of history almost at this point. Um, all of that history is utterly dwarfed by the random scribblings of Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and so on over the course of the last 3 weeks.
Right.
So think about your own life and wise people that you've encountered. What if everyone on Earth was only 3 weeks old? How badly do you think things would work?
Right. Oh dear. And so when the approach that you're working on and the I don't know if you'd call it the solution or the tool, the platform, the marketplace that you're looking to bring in, how does that solve some of those problems? How does it what does it do to flip things on its head?
Well, there's I think really two components. The first and important one is that it segregates competition. So the existing system is a all against all competition. So it would be like if you held the Olympics, but you didn't actually have any events. Everyone had to enter every single event.
Right.
So it's like everything's a decathlon, but it's even worse than that because they also have to swim and shoot and downhill ski and stuff like that.
Right.
Not only would probably none of the existing Olympic participants be able to make it into that thing, the performance in each of the events would be significantly worse because we wouldn't be able to specialize.
Right.
So what the existing system does by making it an all against all is essentially allows specialist traders to effectively beat up farmers, miners, factory owners, and other less specialized people that need these marketplaces to operate their businesses.
Right.
And that gets into how we do it. What my system does is aggregates these groups and allows the groups to interact with each other at the interest level effectively. And so, well, at the interest level by measuring each individual contribution to the total interest. And so what that means, because I can directly measure how useful people's information about the future is, that means that figuring out how to dribble out what you know, which is currently the best strategy that's available, turns into the question of how to broadcast what you know and how to minimize your own mistakes. And so we go from a system where you're trying to insert as much noise as possible. You're basically playing poker into your actions, and everyone else on the planet, while simultaneously doing that, is trying to pull out whatever tease of true information you're accidentally revealing, to a system where everybody's actually trying to present honestly and fairly what their actually interests are and managing that within the complex of everybody else's interests. And that's an enormous noise reducer.
Right. And so who wins? Who gets, in the context of this, who is getting better performance out of this new system that you're developing?
So there's four roles are real winners. Starting with the operator of the marketplace. This involves doing considerably less information processing. So they would get to cut their costs by an enormous fraction. And whereas in the existing marketplace, they charge a fee, which they keep having to sort of reduce as it becomes cheaper and cheaper with new technology to operate the marketplace. In this market, what they actually get to do is decide what market overhead's going to turn out to be and how big their slice is going to be. So essentially, they get to decide how big the cake they're going to bake is, and they get to slice the first piece off for themselves.
Right.
So they can actually create a better product than the kinds of markets that currently exist and take a bigger revenue slice from those new better markets than they're currently getting. So they can drop their costs and raise their revenues at the same time. The second bonus is the expert traders. The informed forecasters is the industry term for these kinds of people. That right now, in addition to doing that, generally they're going to work in the research wing of like a hedge fund or something like that, in order to gain access to the capital to actually exploit their knowledge and research.
Yeah.
Within this system, because the rates of return are much, much higher than the financial system's ever seen before, they can effectively fund their businesses out of their own pockets, even if they're not really wealthy enough to fully exploit their information right now. In an environment where you're getting returns that are maybe 3, maybe 30 times as high as Warren Buffett experienced, you're not going to be too poor to fully exploit your own data for very long. The next group that benefits are the producers within the marketplace, because right now there's varying sized sort of middles where the people that are buying, say, steel or wheat spend X amount of dollars, and the people that are making steel or wheat earn X minus the difference.
Right.
When that difference shrinks a lot, you don't change the price that people are buying at, you change the price people are selling at. And so their returns go up. And because they're in low margin businesses, there's a big magnifying effect of increasing the bottom line. In my country, wheat runs at about a 14% margin on average.
Right.
That's not that weird for farms. Farms are going to run sort of 10 to 15% margins. If you're operating at a 14% margin and your total revenue increases by 2%, your profits will increase by 7 times that, or 14%.
Right.
If you're operating at a 10% margin and that same 2% happens, your profits will actually go up by 20% because they'll be a 10x.
Right.
And so the more marginal the business is, the more magnified the effect of these kinds of systems are. Right. So if you're a struggling family farm that's operating at like a 5% margin, an extra 2%, that's a 40% increase in your actual income.
Yeah.
And then the fourth group that benefits is the consumers of these products. As the producers become wildly more profitable, it becomes attractive to do more production, increasing the volume and quality of the product. And so that will moderate prices once again and increase supply. And so there'll just be more of what we live on in the world.
Yeah. So you've got a win-win-win-win situation going on.
Well, very fortuitously, yes. It's actually, like, I didn't cause that. The economy causes that. I've just found a way to put those pieces together in kind of a brand new arch that allows them to lean on each other in a much more effective way.
Amazing. So, what do we expect to see, and sort of when in the future? What stage are you at with this now, and what are you hoping to achieve over the next year, 5 years, 10 years?
Well, sadly, I'm still fairly early stage, even though I've been working on this for about 8 years. I do have a handful of people around the world that are attempting to build marketplaces that incorporate my technology. And I was just talking to somebody yesterday. I might be having another of those conversations in a month or three. But setting up de novo marketplaces is an expensive and difficult process, even without brand new technology as part of the mix. So it's hard for me to say when it'll go off the ground. I've also been fighting with the patent office for much of that time, and that's now going to court. They have violated their own internal procedures multiple times in order to delay or cancel my patent, and uh, their current objection is that they won't tell me what their current objection is. So I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah.
There's some code that is open source overseas under a Creative Commons license. Um, not the full out. I believe there's actually 8 different levels of the Creative Commons license, and I picked one of the ones that my patent will override inside the United States, just so that I can offer people that advantage for U.S. based action.
Right.
And so that's what I'm looking at. I have some I have some real solid chances of things getting started this year, and I think over the course of the next 5 years that goes up. Um, but it's got to get started. We have to see how human beings respond to something we've never done before, uh, and then we have to grow.
Right.
So that's the process.
Oh, nice. So at this stage in the pod, I'd usually ask a couple of questions. I'm going to maybe ask them slightly differently here. In terms of, so what I would typically say is, who would you like to help perform with the skill set that you've got? I guess to be a bit more pointed in this, which markets would you be targeting, and which individuals, or group of individuals would you be looking to go out and help? Certainly in those earlier stages, is there any target markets or target areas that you're looking at?
Well, so my basic goal has always been to aid in production. I think that if you're not making stuff, then you're sort of screwed. So that's always been kind of, excuse me, my focus. I wound up in nuclear engineering mostly because there were some awesome professors there, but also energy production is the engine of human economic activity. And
Yeah.
so that looked like a really great thing. Um, Unfortunately, we don't actually use nuclear energy for that. So, that's not really something to continue with for me at any rate. So producers as a class are the group that I would most like to help, both with this project and other projects I've worked on. In terms of niche, like where it actually starts up,
Yep.
wherever it starts up is where I want to start up. So the markets, there are some cosmetic and even some slight functional differences in various marketplaces. Uh, in my country, dairy is probably one of the most out of band. But whether you're talking about shipping in the North Sea or cotton coming from the Middle East,
Mm.
there are more similarities between these kinds of markets than there are differences.
Right.
And we, as a whole, really only use one system that came out of Renaissance Italy everywhere on the planet,
Right.
because it's the best one we've had so far. And so I fully expect that as this establishes, wherever it establishes, and demonstrates the algorithmic excellence that the math says that it has,
Mm.
that people are going to look over the shoulders of their neighbors and say, hey, you know Jack has a corn farm, I have a bean farm. Why did Jack take his entire family to the south of France for 6 months on a private jet? And I'm still scrabbling out, subsistence over here. Like, what happened? Oh, the corn farm had a revolution that meant that everybody's income went up by 70%. Why can't the bean farm markets have that? And so, whether it's copper or cotton or corn or something that doesn't start with a C, wherever it starts, it's going to grow. And so that's the goal.
Oh, nice. And from your perspective, if you could sit down and have a coffee, have a meal, have a chat with anyone who you think could help your game, up your performance, help your thinking, who would you want that to be?
Well, probably inexcusably Donald Knuth, since he actually is alive and has coffees with people. He's an emeritus professor at Stanford, and pretty much the foremost person in computational math. Another candidate would be Stephen Wolfram, who is also alive and kicking, and presumably actually has coffees with people. I think he's in London though. Yeah, my kind of sticking to Charlottesville means that I mostly learn from these and other people in the field through books and papers rather than personal chats.
Right. Oh, brilliant. And how do people find out more? Where do people find out more about this system? Where do people get in contact with you?
Well, the easiest way to contact me is Noah P. Healy at yahoo.com. In terms of learning more about my system, I've got an explainer video that's up on YouTube with a little blurb that's on my website at coordisc.com. That's COORDISC. There's also a white paper available for download. And some people have found that helpful. You can also take a look at the patent. The patent office publishes patents once they start working on them.
Right.
There's a lot of legalese, but there's some stuff in there that's a little bit more straightforward than what's in the white paper.
Right. Oh, nice. Well, I'll make sure that all those contacts are in the show notes, and people can get the websites and get the connections there to reach out to you. So some fascinating stuff, and I mean, I'd love to look back in a couple of years and go, I remember I talked to that guy, and he was it was all not a dream, but it was all in its early stages, and look where that whole system is now, and look how it's changed the world. So maybe you could be part of that journey too, whoever's listening today. So
I certainly hope so. I think the world's in for a lot of change. I'd say that computers are a bigger deal than steam engines, and so I think we historically have pre-agriculture, the agricultural period of sort of the historical period, the Industrial Revolution, and I would say that the computer revolution, the information age, the internet revolution, actual history, as Werner Vinge or Vinci calls it. This would be the true historical age, because now we have live 24/7 streaming of people and not just some scribblings that a few people decided to write down.
Yeah. Oh, amazing stuff. Well, thanks so much for being on the show, and fascinating conversation, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So thanks for being on the show, Noah.
Thanks for having me here, Paul.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, then please give the podcast a rate, review, and share. I'm Paul Teasdale, and from sausage making to banking, oil and gas to Formula One, I help people perform. If you'd like to find out more and have a conversation, contact me via helpingpeopleperform.com.